I'm Brie Castellini from the Rogue MFA, and today we're talking about 5 ways to write, even if you don't feel like writing today. Number 1, add to your writer's wish list. Or, if you haven't created one yet, create one. So the writer's wish list is something that my good friend David introduced me to from a book that I don't know because he read it, not me. But essentially it's the principle of a totally non-judgmental list of ideas that you want to eventually, maybe, write something about. These ideas can be as basic as like settings, so a book set in Colorado, or it can be as specific as a kind of character archetype or a log line or a trope or something like that. Your writer's wish list is just kind of a dumping ground for all of the random scattered ideas and things that interest you that don't have a home yet, but may in the future. A version of this advice is also to create or add to an id list. It comes from an author called Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have an actual attribution for this one beyond a friend of mine told me about it. And so the idea of the id list is it's not just a list of things that you can pull a new writing idea out of, which is more what the writer's wish list is aimed for, but it's also a way to help you get unstuck within projects. So if you are working on a scene or a chapter and you're like, this has to happen, but I'm bored and therefore I don't want to write it and I know it's not going to be good, the id list is there to kind of help you look through things that have sort of activated your id, that have made you excited in the past, and perhaps there's a way to incorporate one of the things on your id list into this otherwise kind of boring or expository sequence that makes it more fun to write and probably a lot more fun to read. Idea number 2 is to interview your characters. So this is obviously one for if you have an active work in progress or are working towards a work in progress, maybe you're in the outlining phase. So there are a couple of ways that you could apply the interview your characters idea. The first is to find one of the hundreds of millions of character interviews and templates on the internet to just answer pre-written questions about your characters to help you flesh out, like, what are their habits and mannerisms? What are the pet peeves of this character? Things like that, because sometimes thinking about who your character is helps you come up with what should they be doing in the story. But something that I do is a little bit more informal, which is I will literally have a written conversation with my characters, like especially if I'm stuck somewhere or if I'm kind of at a crossroads. Now that I'm a screenwriter, I do this in screenplay format because it's easier to flip back and forth for dialogue, but I've also written it longhand where I will literally put who is talking, so whether it's me, the author, or a character name, and I will write a conversation with them. Sometimes it's like, hey, why aren't you doing what I need you to do? And then I try to let the character sort of advocate for themselves. What this allows me to do is to like get the feel for my characters as people, and usually that either unblocks where I was blocked, gives me a new idea to go in a totally different direction, or at the very least gets me in the sort of mode of thinking about this character as a complete person. And that makes it a lot easier in future to make decisions, because now I'm not just like, what's a good idea, but what makes sense for who I know this character to be. Idea number 3, do all that boring admin stuff that you've probably been putting off. This can be done before the book is even started or long after it's finished and you're working on editing it. So when I say the boring admin stuff, I usually mean the things that sort of appear in most query manager fields when you're submitting for agency consideration. That's things like your 2-page synopsis, your 1-sentence logline, your list of comps. Sometimes admin and wanting to avoid admin is what's going to get you writing again. So whichever direction you go, whether you're procrastinating writing by doing admin or procrastinating admin by doing writing, you're still being productive. Idea number 4, do a tarot reading. So this one is another one that assumes that you have at least some kind of work in progress, be it an active writing piece or even an outline phase. This is something that my friend Christine has done before that I thought was really a fun idea, even though I'm not really a tarot girl, but I have a deck and I want to learn to use it more. But what she does is that when she's at a crossroads for a character or is sort of struggling to figure out like what does this character need to do in this moment, in this book overall? What themes are they probably exploring? She'll do a tarot reading for the character to, sort of put herself in their shoes and to see what might open up. Whether or not you believe that tarot is like genuinely mystical and spiritual, or just a fun way to interpret a randomized card drawing game, it'll still probably give you new insights and new perspective to look at, well, what does the universe think that this character should do? And how might I find some fun opportunities there? Last idea for how to write without writing is to read a craft book, whether it's a single chapter or a craft article. We have some recommendations in the description box. So this is one that was inspired by me and the primal fear I have about the book Story Genius by Lisa Crone. Kelly, my fellow Rogue MFA person, she has been recommending this book to me for probably a decade, maybe a little bit less than a decade. I don't know how time works anymore. And so it just became this sort of source of like fear and shame, because I knew it would be good for me to do, but I could never find a natural place to do it, to read this book in my sort of day-to-day life. But when I started doing co-working sessions, especially when I started doing sprint-based co-working sessions with my fellow writers community, which we're going to be doing nowadays on this YouTube channel, so keep an eye out, I realized that I could read a chapter in 20 minutes. So if I'm feeling stuck or uninspired, I could instead take this time to develop my craft and go to those articles that I've probably bookmarked and haven't read through yet and haven't really had an excuse to look at, but know that I should. This is a perfect time to do that. So if you have a book, a craft book that either you love and want to revisit, or that someone has recommended to you and you haven't found a good time to read yet, this is a perfect opportunity to dedicate time to that. You know, if you're already going to be sitting there trying to do work, trying to think about craft, what better time to get some craft reading done? Ultimately, the best writing process for you is the one where you show up. So whether you're actively adding to a work in progress or you're picking one of these methods to continue training yourself to have a creative routine, even if it's not always exclusively words on page, you're already doing more than 90% of the writers out there. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if you would like to join our virtual writing community, we are going to be on this YouTube channel every other Thursday starting March 5th, 2026, doing writing sprints and creative challenges as a community. So I hope to see you there.